It's the Anfield Wrap. Liverpool 0, Manchester United 0. Neil Atkinson with you. I've got Melissa Reddy, Ben Johnson and Rob Gutmann talking about that game yesterday for about an hour or so, working right the way through for you because the game's come so thick and fast. Liverpool play Maribor in about 20 minutes. So we're going to talk about that soon, but we're going to start off obviously talking about Manchester United versus Liverpool, well, the other way around, and that's one of the things why it's interesting. Rob, we had a chat on City Talk on Friday, and I mean, you thought that United would be more expansive. I think as soon as the team sheet comes in, you see that he's playing two fullbacks and Ashley Young. Yeah. I think that tells you a certain story about the way in which they intend to go about it. But I thought we accepted that reality and dealt with it really quite well in terms of the fact that we weren't going to let anything cheap get away.
Yes, I agree with all that. Yeah, the minute you saw that team sheet, you could tell that Ashley Young was going to be played in that wide midfield role that I think like Rafa and Julio would put Risa in, and occasionally ahead of the fullback. The double fullback strategy. That was aimed at negating Coutinho, wasn't it? Yeah, it was that side of the pitch. They seemed to work very, very hard at negating Coutinho and Salah's threat, and I don't think Coutinho and Salah touched the ball a great deal in the first 15, but the two of them work it out. It's very interesting reading back the reactions back to this game afterwards. I'd say the majority of the neutral and Manchester view is that we witnessed vintage Mourinho, which annoys the fuck out of me because it's vintage if you're an underdog and you go and do that. It's not a big smart move when you're in your team is brimming with confidence. It's toe to toe with a serious rival for the title. Needs to be looking at 3 points as a minimum expectation every single game. And you're playing Liverpool at the best possible time. They're not a wounded animal because they didn't lose the last two games, but they're lacking in confidence and form. They're two of our best players are the latest back from international breaks in Firmino and Coutinho. Liverpool are never there more for the taking at Anfield. Not that Liverpool are ever there for the taking at Anfield, but it's never more. The wind's never more at United's back than it was before the start of play yesterday. And yet he puts in the most tactically conservative performance going. It's not a two-legged affair in Europe. It's not one of those where the draw sets it up for them to just take the tie away from us at Old Trafford. I think it's a miserablest piece of tactical work by Mourinho, and any plaudits that have come his way are absolutely laughable.
I think the thing that does my head about that sort of rhetoric, it was a masterclass, a tactical masterclass, is it's not. Because you've seen Sean Dyche turn up and do a tactical masterclass with a limited bunch of players, and he done it much better because A, they scored, and B, they had a couple of chances to exploit.
Lot more aggressive.
A lot more aggressive.
And ambitious, yeah.
Exactly. So it's not... It's a louse in the extreme, but that's to be expected because that's what he does, and there's nothing wrong with it.
There's nothing wrong with it. I don't have a moral view on it at all. I think that's important in that. I think that. But what annoys me about the masterclass rhetoric is Emre Can's got a tap in from 4 yards, mate. Yeah. Now, and Liverpool had more than enough chances. I couldn't believe I don't think the comparison to last year is quite valid. In that this year we did not have to spend a lot of time and have a lot of quality football in their box.
Absolutely.
And that's why for me, we're basically having a conversation about Liverpool's finishing again to a certain extent more than anything else. We were there, Mel, in their box a lot of the time. The keeper has to make a really good save from Matip, where Matip genuinely should score and should do better. Salah should then score. Can, as I say, second half misses from 4 or 5 yards. We're consistently around their penalty area, being about to make things happen one way or the other. There's some last-ditch stuff from them. None of this is tactical masterclass stuff. This is just getting on with it, really. And I'm fine with that, and I'm fine with that's how it plays out. But that's the reality, not the idea. Like last year, most of the game took place in the middle third. That's not the case this year.
Absolutely. If it is a tactical masterclass, you completely deny the attacking threats, and they didn't do that. They, as much as they try to even restrict Coutinho, the space for Coutinho, double up on Salah, those two players still had a lot of joy. Coutinho was still able to pick passes, still able to break a few ankles with, twist and turn. And Salah had a lot of joy. Gini as well,
he played well.
Started very, very strongly. And I think it was 11 shots inside the box from Liverpool. There was Lovren's header as well, which he should have done better with. If Salah leaves the ball for Coutinho after De Gea's brilliant save from Matip, then, Coutinho scores from that position. So the way the game is spoken about, I think it's easy to just say, Jose, typical Jose. He's parked the bus. He's done brilliantly. He came for the draw. He got the draw. But that wasn't a defense. He wouldn't have been thrilled with that defensive performance from his side, because that was the aim, to completely stifle Liverpool. And they didn't. And you are right, Neil. It is a conversation about finishing again, because there were more than enough chances to win the game. And, De Gea, I think in this fixture, more than any other, continuously shows the value of having a world-class goalkeeper. And I think just once again yesterday, you look at all the money United have spent, and for me, if there's one player I take out of their team, if you could have anyone, and I think most teams would say this, it's him. He is still, regardless of how much they pay, regardless of Pogba's commercial, pull and all that stuff. If I'm looking at that team, the standout, the cream, is him. It's De Gea, and again yesterday he is the difference.
He's the best goalkeeper in the league by a distance, I think, John. I don't think in the way in which there isn't a best centre forward in the league by a distance. I don't think there's a best attacking midfielder in the league by a distance. I think De Bruyne and Coutinho could have a long argument about that one. There isn't a best holding midfielder in the league by a distance, not least because everyone asks everyone to do different things. I don't think there's a best centre half in the league by a distance. City's centre backs you can have conversations about. Chelsea play that three at the back. Luiz looks good, but how good is he? But he is the best. He's in his position. He is the best person at it by the greatest distance, I think, in the country.
Yeah, he's great. He's really good, and it's a shame that he plays for them, because he does your head in when he plays against you. And there's rumours every year, he's gone to Real Madrid. You're like, get in, and then it never happens.
What's wrong with Real Madrid?
Why don't they just buy him?
Just fucking
buy him, you bellends.
If only he was Spanish and had that extra bit of pull. Oh yeah. If only you were the richest club in the world with the most appeal. Fucking and some dough
and loads of
dough. Sorry, yeah.
And an area to improve.
It's mad.
So yeah, it's annoying. I was with a couple of Man United mates yesterday. They were in the away end. And they were really disappointed with how United played and but how they were set up. They like what you were saying, Rob. They thought it's a good time to play Liverpool. It's a good time to show that we're actually that they're a decent side. And they were frustrated in the extreme. They just thought it was a waste of time. What's the point in going into this fixture to do this? At least when you get the opportunity to try, because there was periods in the game where
I thought they were having a little bit more of a go than last year.
I thought they tried, but they were poor.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Really poor. But there was periods in the game where they had the ability to control the play, and then if you're them, you're thinking, right, here's our 10 minutes now where we can build on this and put some pressure on, and it just never materialised. I thought they were really poor. I thought they were sloppy. They were possibly the most defensively set up side to come to Liverpool this season. And if I was them, I'd be annoyed at it, because, but then that's what he does, and even with the conversation we were having with the two lads yesterday was much of the season's been very similar. Just the quality of what you're playing against is different. So you play Swansea or whoever it is, you get more of the ball because they're not as good at keeping the ball as, say, Liverpool. So although the balance is different in the game, the setup's not much different. They're just able to get further up the pitch because they can keep the ball better. They don't do much different. They're just playing against worse players, so they get more chances, so they score some goals. They're ruthless at both ends of the pitch, which he's a mastermind at setting teams up to be like. But it just sounds ridiculous. They're not a good side, and yet they're like, that's what annoys you. But it sounds stupid because they've got well more points than us.
So look at the points total. How can you say they're not a good side?
You're arguing against your rational brain against something. There's something lacking. There's something emotively lacking in the way they play football. It's too mechanic.
I don't think I've seen a United side carry less of a threat at Anfield ever than that. Okay, they have that one chance, but you get to a point. Sometimes you watch us play in a big game. You go after a while. No, yeah, well, obviously you do a lot. No, these are properly shit here. These are properly not good enough to pose a major threat to us. That United team posed the least threat I've ever seen a United team pose at Anfield. I'm going to be hyperbolic about it, if that's the word. I just don't think they were very good. And you know what? I don't think they've come on from last season a great deal. Yes, I may get to look stupid when they have another 6-4-0s on the bounce, as they've had before that. As you said, there's not a lot of good numbers behind this argument that they are in fact shit. but I can't. I don't know what to believe. The stats on my lying eyes. You know, it's they were just very poor. But you know what? Let's give Liverpool some credit. I think the main thing I came away from is it was a salutary reminder that whatever level United are at, Liverpool are at that level too. And I don't think I'm talking shit in saying this. Yeah, we may have had some games where we look absolutely continually error prone at the back. We look like we need to be more ruthless, well, in both boxes. But I'm sorry, it just reminded me of last season. I thought the same sort of juxtaposition between the teams was there again. It was there to be seen.
It's interesting, the comments after the game. Mourinho said, well, you know, which he likes to do, is that I wasn't the only one who was defensive. That, you know, almost like it wasn't fair because Liverpool just didn't give us a couple of absolute, you know, golden chances one-on-one.
Which we expected. We planned that.
Hang on, you've been doing this every week. What's the matter with you? But his remarks were interesting when you think about them, because then that leads you to think, well, actually, yeah, Liverpool probably were a little bit more conservative in the use of the fullbacks. The fullbacks weren't as up the pitch. They defended really well. Both of our fullbacks defended really well, won the battles. And so that leads you to think, okay, well, what's going on the rest of the season? Why aren't we able to keep clean sheets every week? And is it about balance? Is it just balance? Is it because in this game yesterday we know we've got to try and keep our shape a little bit more than we normally would, because we're scared of being exploited on the break.
It's concentration.
It's concentration and balance, I think. I think that's there's a slight flaw in the way we set up. It's around when we need to score a goal is how exposed we are and how we're able to be exploited.
I was just going to say, in so much as we talk about how poor United were and how they didn't really do much, Liverpool actually didn't allow them the opportunities to. They pressed really well. They were very aggressive. The duels, Liverpool were much better in so many of the duels, and I think it ended up being quite a good percentage that they won, like 54%, which, you know, against quite a physical, big, dominant United team who enjoy, you know, the fight for the second balls and stuff, was very, very pleasing. I thought the midfield three, which Mourinho referenced afterwards as well, we spoke about balance there. It was perfect because you had Gini looking to drive through midfield, but then you had a very disciplined Emre and Hendo to make sure that if Liverpool lost the ball in that position, that, you know, they were in place. And Klopp's spoken about having protection for your own offensive moves, and he's referenced before that is an area where Liverpool have an issue with, because when you're playing that way, when you are so much in control of the ball and all the creativity is coming from you, the initiative is coming from you, it does, in the flow of the game, you can get caught up in that too much and then want to do too much because you have all this to do. It's basically on you to, you know, to force this game. And they did very well not getting sucked into that. Early on, I thought, actually, Liverpool were consuming United, so much so that I remember looking up, 8 minutes hadn't been played yet, and Chris Smalling was saying to everyone, relax, calm down, breathe, because the crowd was going, and Liverpool, you could see United were set up to be obstructive. You could tell Liverpool wanted to get at them, and there was this whole, it was emotional football, which is something, you know, Klopp's spoken about before. Liverpool are at their best, I think, when they are playing that kind of football. The only big disappointment was that this fixture came right after the international break, the early kickoff on the Saturday, because I think same lineups, same tactical plans from both teams. Yeah, next week, I think Liverpool would have been a lot better, because the only what was missing was a little bit of sharpness and a little bit of incision, but quicker thinking and quicker feet. And I think that is obviously from the fact you've just gone away, played, and, you know, the Brazilian lads the distance they had to travel. Salah as well.
Oh, well, on that, Mel, I want to come back to you. I think that explains the subs. There's a lot of people who've got. I had a text from Steve Armstrong after the match who said he'd like me match review, and he's really nice, Steve. And he said, I think that's a pretty fair assessment of the game. But he said it's in our end, we were watching the best players on the pitch go off.
Yeah.
And that was, and you can see exactly, if you flip that scenario, if we're in the same thing, we're going every sub, we're thinking, oh, I'm glad he's gone off.
Yeah.
From their point, that's what we're thinking. But I think that's the context of the manager. I'm sure he gets loads and loads of sports science information. He's got this game against Maribor on Tuesday. He's got Spurs next Sunday. He knows these lads have all just come back off flights, Mel. And he basically almost takes them off in terms of distance travel during international break. You get to see him do that in front of your very eyes. Yeah,
that's the thing. I think when we're looking at and I've seen a lot of criticism over the substitutions and who he takes off, but we're analysing it solely on this game and what we want to happen in this game and what we think should happen in this game. He's taking into consideration what's come before this game, i.e. they've all gone away, come back, what condition they've come back in. It must have been really close as well for somebody like Coutinho, who's, had a lot of minutes in his legs during this break, had a very, very long flight, and it is the early kickoff. It's risks you take when you do this. And he also has to think about what's coming next. You've got a Champions League game, and then you've got Spurs away as well. So he's got a bigger picture to deal with. And I think he tries to keep them on for as long as possible to give them the biggest opportunity to do something. And then he's got to make changes. The one thing I would say is I would have perhaps on the substitutions taken Firmino off earlier and actually brought Solanke on earlier, because I think that just gives United a different kind of player to defend against.
Again, I wonder if, Mel, I'll come back to you on that. I think that maybe in 4 weeks you might see that happen if Sturridge is still frustrating. I think at the minute, from a dressing room point of view, from everyone understanding what it is I'm doing point of view, a morale point of view, even for Sturridge as well. I think Sturridge can accept not starting at home against Man United. If he's not first attacking sub, I think that becomes a complicated conversation with him. But also, if your Solanke move doesn't work, there's a lot of other people in the squad who are maybe a bit, I just brought the lad who's boss on.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. I understand. I completely understand why he does what he does. Just like I said, for me personally, that would have been the one change, because Solanke still offers you the pressing, the harassing. Yeah. But he gives United something else to think about, because he's good in the air, he's good with his feet, great hold-up play.
Can I go back to you one more thing on the subs, Mel, just before I bring the other two back in, where they can talk about it as well. I can see Rob especially is itching. But the other thing that strikes me is, and it seems counterintuitive in a way, but I'd have quite liked to have seen just 5 minutes with Coutinho and Sturridge both on the pitch at the same time. That was the other thing that made me maybe move everything a little bit earlier, so you just get 5 minutes with Coutinho and Sturridge both being on the pitch, because you've seen it looked like the sort of game where we're not looking for we're not going to get the room for a 40-yard through ball that anyone's running onto, but a little bit of 5-yard cleverness inside the penalty area. I was just thinking that could be quite nice as well.
Yeah, that's another good shout, actually. Mourinho spoke about the substitutions and stuff afterwards, and he said he expected Klopp to make attacking changes earlier and remove one of the midfielders. And a lot of I've seen actually a lot of comments saying Liverpool should have gone for it. I think even Carragher said Liverpool should have taken the risk. If Liverpool made that attacking change and went uber offensive and left themselves exposed, and United nicked that game, there would be absolute murder today. And then it would have been actually the Mourinho masterclass, because it is the smash and grab, largely undeserved, and it would have been Klopp's stubborn, he doesn't learn. Why do you leave yourself overexposed? Yeah, why do you leave yourself overexposed in that game? And I thought it was so clever and pragmatic and probably surprising as well, that when Mourinho makes his two attacking changes, that we don't then say, okay, yeah, we're also going to do that. that we think to ourselves, let's be smart here. Because he does that, and he said it afterwards, Mourinho. He makes those changes to force Liverpool to surrender one of their midfielders because they could not get a hold of the game because of Liverpool's midfield. And he was desperate for one of those midfielders to go off. So the fact that Liverpool didn't do it, I think, was pleasing.
I think Klopp's view is a fourth attacker as opposed to the three you have doesn't make you likely to score the goal. For the reasons you've just outlined, as much as anything. You lose your dominance, you can push a full-back high, there's many things you can do. I think the changes he makes are successful, because I don't think we lose impetus. Nothing. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, I don't know whether there's not been much talk about this, was fantastic when he came on.
Yeah.
He was, it was a cameo again. It's not enough to judge positively, but we've judged him negatively on cameos. I thought he was fantastic. I thought he vindicated the substitution. And your point about the Coutinho, Neil, I just think the issue that whilst it sounds absolutely perfect logic, I think that was so preordained because Coutinho's the guy who's literally less than 48 hours off.
Oh no, he was, and to be honest, I'd spent 5 to 10 minutes saying Coutinho's goosed here. He's absolutely shattered.
Yeah.
And he's just being clattered, by the way.
Yeah.
At the point he comes off. So I just think he's the first anyway. I actually thought it was quite smart by Klopp the way he staggered those three. They didn't all come off together. It was over a series of a few minutes, which allowed us to readjust without it suddenly becoming a League Cup front three. I think he did it really, really well. Mourinho expects us to open up. I don't know really what Mourinho is saying. I thought he exposed a degree of naivety in his planning to me, Mourinho. What he's seen is Klopp send Liverpool teams out against mid-table and lower half of the table sides and make the add that fourth attacker later in the games.
Yeah.
Well, of course you're going to bloody do it against Burnley. Of course you can throw caution to the wind against Newcastle because we've got nothing coming the other way. You can afford to spend the last 10 minutes making it the Alamo. But he's not stupid. You're not going to do that against one of the top six, any of the top six. And it's not a conservative thing to do that. It was just Mourinho trying to twist it around, goes, we're all a bit cautious. I listened to all the interviews afterwards, and Mourinho's words in isolation are quite reasonable. But no one ever takes him to task. No one ever goes, hang on, Jose, hang on a goddamn minute. In form terms, you were miles better than these. Everyone was saying they were crap. Everyone was saying this is this is a pretty poor Liverpool side. Well, it's good going forward, but it can't defend. It was there for the taking. And you've gone and put out the most defensive display that will be put by any side in Europe this weekend. What about that, Jose? What about that? No fucker's going to do that. Wish someone would ask sometimes. Have I got an agenda? Yes, I've got an agenda.
I actually think that he said, or some of the questions put to him, I thought were quite strong. Your United side came here without any ambition. That was the question.
Oh, was that? I missed that one. I must be on the toilet.
But I think because he's so used to doing this, he knew how his team were going to play. And he knew the questions he'd get, and he knew the answers he was going to give well before the press conference started, before the game started. So I think the frustration is obviously that you've seen Liverpool dominate, and this fixture under Klopp, by the way, it's been the same. So much better than United, and you still don't get the result. The first game where Wayne Rooney scores on 78 minutes after they've done nothing, to win the game, and De Gea has an absolute stormer at the other end of the pitch. And I think it's just because it's this fixture, it's the same again, you dominate but you don't beat them in the league, and then added on to the fact that, from the last international break, it's been that Liverpool, the better team, but not winning. And so I think we'll look at the game and find reasons for what we could have done or should have done or how else to win that game. But Liverpool do everything they should do yesterday but score. I thought everything else, I thought the way they protected or didn't allow United any chance on the counter, I thought the way they fought for space and created so much, even though it was such a disobliging United side, I thought everything was spot on, just apart from the finish.
On that, I put in my match review that, and I think that this is the way in which the manager's thinking about it. And I think you can. I'll come on to the extension of it in a minute, Ben. But my thing on it is Liverpool were always the much more likely side to win the game, and I think that's if you bear that in mind, that's and in fact the only side likely to win the game. In fact, it's not. It's not. This didn't really feel. It doesn't feel like this is 55-45. It sat at sort of 80-20. And it was as though the manager was thinking, well, we're just much more likely to win it than these because they can't get at us. They've chosen not to, but also the way we're playing means they just can't get at us. So if anyone's going to win, it's going to be us. Unless they get a Phil Jagielka like 35-yard thunderbolt or something from somewhere. It didn't look like there was any other pathway for them. And I think that if you view the changes in that context, that he's not trying to make it more likely that we score, but he's trying to ensure that we remain as likely as possible to be the only side that can win the game. Then the changes make absolute sense, and they're actually really hard to disagree with, because not just is he conscious of the next two games with people's fitness and things like that, but he also knows there's 30 league games to go after this one. But that this club probably would struggle to bounce back again from a smash and grab defeat. That he's got to think about all of that sort of stuff, and he knows what moods are like in dressing rooms and in the wider sort of body politic of Liverpool.
I think this changes. It's an interesting conversation, and it is brinksmanship between the managers at that level of football. You're waiting on what's he going to do, and you're almost looking at each other going, "Go on, you make yours first, and then we'll make ours," or whatever. And it's interesting that Mourinho ends up trying to force Klopp's hand, and we do nothing. There's a good point you made, Mel, because sometimes it's easy to respond. Someone makes a move, it's easy to respond, but I like for a change yourself to go, to try and take the initiative. When actually you're better off doing nothing to see if what your plan is now works when you're faced with something slightly different. I think the other thing to note is, all right, we want to carry on being in a position to win the match, but in order to do that, our wide players have got to still work really hard. So he puts Firmino out there to create the ability to contain them, even though it's high up the pitch, your wide forwards are doing a lot of the defensive work, I think, in that shape. And so if you take one of them off and you put, it's understandable that he put Firmino on the left and Sturridge in the middle, because he knows he's not going to get that much. He works Sturridge, but
it's not the same.
It's not the same. So he puts Solanke sort of leftish because he knows he's going to graft, and he puts Oxlade-Chamberlain on right and he knows he's going to graft, and so the balance is kept of our side. I think the
other thing he's thinking on that, just sorry to interrupt, but I think the other thing he is thinking when he brings Oxlade-Chamberlain on right and ends up with Solanke left is we're just a tiny little bit lopsided, because he's conscious after United make their changes. Listen, Rashford is a bit more of a threat than Ashley Young. At this stage, Rashford's a bit more of a threat than Ashley Young. So I thought that was the point where we became a little bit more. It wouldn't surprise me if someone had a little conversation with Oxlade-Chamberlain and said, remember, you've got a right back behind you who needs some help. And whereas I do think that on the other side, there is a bit of a mentality of, well, yeah, Valencia's decent and Ashley Young's all right, but listen, we're probably going to be. That's why Solanke, I think, very much ends up over there. It's not just accidents.
Yeah, I think the other, that's a good point. But I think the other thing to note as well is if you're Klopp and if you're putting Daniel Sturridge into that game with 10 minutes to go after an international weekend when the team you're playing, everyone's been away, they're all tired, everyone's tired. You're bringing someone on fresh. I'd like to see more of an impact from that player if he's your first attack and change. I really like Sturridge, but I thought you may as well not bother bringing him on yesterday because he just couldn't get in it at all. I
think it's so hard for him because he doesn't have the rhythm. He just doesn't, and it's so hard to give it to him because he's struggling for rhythm. The team needs the wins. If you're giving him those minutes and he struggles, and you're not getting the same sort of pressing and stuff, it's a difficult conundrum because you do want Daniel Sturridge at his sharpest, at his most confident, but I don't know how you do that without starting him regularly, and we're not in the position actually to start him regularly at the moment. I think Newcastle kills him, the Newcastle game, because the point of Sturridge is if you give him a chance he scores. That's the point of him. That's what he's there on. I would argue the toss for Sturridge all day long because in my head, if he gets on the pitch, if you give him some of them chances that other players in our team have been missing, then he will score. The one he has against Newcastle got to go in, and it doesn't. And that for me is
is the issue as to why you can't rely on him to play, because if he's not bringing all of the other stuff that you want your centre forward to do, not bringing all the stuff that Firmino does, okay, that's fine. But when he gets a chance, he's got to score. And he doesn't.
Do you know what he's reminding me of, Ben? It's late period, Daniel Agger in particular. He's found a way of not being injured 1 in every 2 weeks, and it's by playing within his body. I might be totally wrong, but it looks like that. It feels like that. And if it looks like it and feels like it probably is. We are getting very close to the point where we just have to start enjoying fond memory.
I think the marker on that one is the pre-season Bayern Munich goal. I think that still remains, like when he ran away from people. He was running away from people. And then in he's run away from them. It's a lovely finish, and in the very act of scoring it. And I don't think you've seen him, I don't think you've seen him run like that since when he's been coming back in. And that's what makes you think he's thinking, I can't quite go that. I don't want to quite go to that little bit when you've got. I think all of us literally around this table have at some point sprinted, and therefore know that when you sprint, at some point, it's been a long time, have at some point sprinted, and when you sprint, you do that thing with your body where you go from your body being able to run quite comfortably to your body suddenly going, this is sprinting now, mate. Bits of me are in the red, and I think. But I think Sturridge is basically saying, I'm going to do all my footy, and bits of me are never going to be in the red because I'm worried that as soon as I go there, I've now got a very recent memory, and it's interesting in the context of that how well he plays when he comes on against Leicester, because he's just doing loads of clever things, shielding the ball and being. It's very much he comes on and it's a great substitute appearance.
No pressure,
but I think there's tons of pressure.
I don't do exactly
not to score,
but also to use his brain. He's just using. He comes on and all he does is basically say, I'm the best footballer on the pitch, and the smartest footballer on the pitch. Watch me go, boys.
Yeah.
Whereas when it becomes anything else, I think that's where he is. He is still finding it, for whatever reason, a bit tricky.
I think, look, at the end of the day, it's not the Daniel Sturridge show, and I'm a massive fan of Daniel Sturridge. Liverpool have to prevail. They have to have a striker who comes off champing at the bit. Oxlade-Chamberlain does what an impact sub should do yesterday. He comes up, he's on fire. Daniel isn't. He isn't when he gets his chance last week. We're too big. We're too good for this now. I hate to feel like I'm saying I'm the guy who's now crossed the line on Daniel Sturridge, but I feel like I am, apart from the fact that we don't actually have any alternatives, because Dominic Solanke is still a work in progress. I kind of agree with Mel. It might have been interesting to see what he could have done on his own with the other best players around him. But still, I would say if this is the pattern by the time we get to January 1, I want a striker in January. I just do. One that we will use off the bench, maybe take Firmino's place, but I do want a striker because we are lacking with a goal scorer off the bench.
All the best.
Well, yeah, I know. All the best.
But it'll be interesting to see what the story is on Tuesday. Is it Tuesday we play Maribor?
Yeah.
I'd start Sturridge.
That's the thing. That's sitting here now looking at it, you think, right, start Sturridge, rest Firmino. That's what I'm doing. I'm not even taking Firmino. I don't think I'm leaving him with his feet up, waiting for Sunday or Saturday or whenever we play Tottenham.
Sunday.
But then what you get out of Sturridge on Tuesday, and I think it's almost gonna be pivotal into what we get out of him this season. If he goes there and scores and plays well, then you think, yeah, okay, we can back him again. If we can find a way to make it work, because we're playing against the team. I don't know nothing about them, but I can't imagine they're any good. That's what that might be absolutely by whatever. But if he fancies himself as one of the best players, one of the best centre forwards in the league, should be playing in Liverpool's team. Okay, here's your chance. Go and beat these team, fellas who get in the second division in our league or whatever. I don't know how good they are. How good are they? Might be great. I don't know. Might be talking absolutely shite, Neil. It wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility.
Wouldn't be the first time either, would it?
They've qualified.
Won't be the last.
They've qualified, so they're probably shit Premier League level.
We're going to go there, expect to have all the ball and control the game. I think it's the perfect opportunity for him to show what he can do. But I think it might almost be a marker for what you can expect from him this season.
I think it's important to play him. I want to just, in the context of what I just said, all the best to Rob there, I have a thing that the manager, Mel, he has somewhere on the line, I think he sort of has a covenant with his players every 12 months. That almost, if you're putting it in for me, this is what I'll do for you. And I think that's why, for instance, I think it's one of the reasons he is, for instance, reluctant to make signings in January is I'm building a team spirit here. I'm building a unit. We're all in this together, lads. The idea that I've decided that one of you is too crap and I've got to go and buy someone else clangs. I expect to see Liverpool get after Van Dijk in January because it couldn't be clearer to that squad that Liverpool were desperate for Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah.
But that aside, I think he'll have the idea of he's had the conversation, the blah 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 with everyone. And one of the things is it's difficult for him. If Sturridge is putting it in training, and he almost certainly will be, otherwise he wouldn't be coming off first sub and all that sort of stuff.
So just on that point, if you speak to people like the players and coaching staff, they tell you Sturridge in training, like in those small-sided games, his touch, his sharpness, the intelligence, everything it's why you continuously live in this cycle of hope that it is going to click for him. And that's why I say the difficulty for him is he just doesn't have the rhythm. He's not playing regularly enough to be in his groove.
Would you start him on Tuesday then?
I would, yeah. I would, in the context of everything else that's going on, the fact that you've just played United off the international break, you've got Tottenham to come, which is a taxing game.
Huge.
Yeah, very, very. It's
very physical.
There's a big gap, that's important to note between Maribor and Tottenham. It's a 5-day gap. It's like a Monday, Saturday, if you think about it another way. It's like a full week, kind of.
Although it's about what has just come as well. And the fact that your star players, so you don't have Mane, and we haven't actually spoken about that going into this. That was another thing United had in their favour, the fact that a game changer was absent for Liverpool.
I don't think Pogba gives them more than Herrera, say, does he? In that context.
If they're going to play like that, it might be though. If Mourinho was sitting here, he might actually say, "Well, if I'd have had Pogba, I might have adjusted it a little bit differently."
Of course, he'll say that.
Of course, he'd say
he
that.
Wouldn't have done. He'd have had him bringing headers and elbowing people.
Exactly.
But,
sorry, Will.
Yeah, I think the fact that Coutinho's, and even actually before going away on international football, Coutinho was the only player to have started like 5 games in a row. So he's, with that Mane injury, with Lallana out, you cannot afford a Salah or a Coutinho or even a Firmino, because you're in quite dangerous territory there for the way Liverpool want to play if any of those players are out. And so as much as I think it's so important for Liverpool to get a big win, and I want to see Coutinho play every game just because I think creatively, and he's got the best vision in the team. Obviously, we all know that he's the one that can unlock defenses and stuff. I'm not playing him against Maribor, and I'd play Sturridge, I'd play Oxlade-Chamberlain. I'd probably even look to maybe use the diamond. I think Sturridge perhaps would benefit from a partner up front. I think that would work more to his favour, especially, considering the lack of rhythm issue and all that. And it would allow him to drop deeper, which he likes to do, get on the ball more, spray some passes. So I'd like...
What do you think the chances of that happening, Mel, are in terms of the... how many times we've seen Klopp play the Diamonds, Man United away last year?
Including the plays at West Ham, plays it against Middlesbrough.
Doesn't do it often, no, does he?
No, I'm with Mel in that. I would do it. I'd have no problem
playing Sturridge and Solanke.
I was going to say I'd go Sturridge and Solanke. Do something in behind. Not quite sure what. I do think. I'm getting boring, but I don't know. I think this Liverpool side would love some Adam Lallana. But
what's the sketch there? I mean, it's gone very quiet from him being back in training, Mel. You're the person who might know.
No, it was always. The idea was always mid-November.
He went to Qatar last week, didn't he, for some extra medicine?
Yeah, no, they...
Which always worries me. It's like when Michael Owen got sent to for wolf's blood injections.
Klopp has the idea that when you're in a long rehabilitation period, it can all feel quite samey, and it's tough when you're a key player and you're out, because you do think all the time about how you could be influencing things, and when your routine is the same, I think it adds to the deflation of everything.
So over to see Richard Keys.
Yeah, Sturridge, we know, did like rehab in LA. We've seen Jordan Henderson go to Miami, Lallana as well. Go to Miami.
So do you know what it means, though? It means that they're not about to come back in 2 weeks' time, is what it means.
No, well, Mel said that. I think
it's saying that, yeah.
All the way through, it's been mid-November.
Yeah, it's a refresher on it's just change of
It's a mentality
scenery.
thing,
Yeah,
it's a mental
it's
health
change
thing.
of scenery. It also makes you feel like you're in a because if you're in the same place, even if you're stepping up your recovery but everything else is the same, it might not feel to you as bigger step than if you're doing it somewhere else. Now you feel like, oh, yeah, I'm,
And
in
then
a
you come
different
back
room.
and you've got another goal on the, say, okay, now we're back here, we're setting it up again, you're going to run on the pier, whatever it is.
It'd be such a lift to get
I've not heard anything to suggest that there's been setbacks. Everything we've heard so far is that he's on course with his recovery. Klein, I think, had a little bit of a setback, but he should be on the way again soon. By the way, Joe Gomez.
Oh, what a performance.
What a performance.
Yeah.
Really, really smart play from him.
You were waiting for that Rick, weren't you, late on, and it never came. He stayed focused to the very end. He was really, really good. I thought both fullbacks were outstanding.
I thought Moreno was excellent.
I want to make Ben Johnson talk about Moreno in a minute, but I want to come back to I want to talk about Joe Gomez for a minute, Rob, because one of the ways in which he is excellent is he actually plays against 3 different opponents across the course of the game. Actually, Young has a go for a little period when he's swapping sides, Martial and Rashford, and he sees them all off. And considering their instruction in an attacking sense is basically get the better of him, because it's the idea Mourinho's just thinking of, and rightly so, and so the player, I'd be exactly the same. Get this lad one-on-one, beat him, and then we could be in behind, and then we go from there. And they never get a tiny little bit of change out of him. I'll talk about Moreno differently, but I think in terms of 90 minutes of sheer concentration, adapting your mindset, dealing with different challenges, refreshing, taking a deep breath, I think it's a really, really impressive performance against good players.
Yeah, it was a really impressive. I think it's another case of it's shit or bust, really. You're deep-ended, you're playing against a big team on form, Joe. You've made mistakes. You've got to stand up and be counted, or this could be one of your last appearances, quite frankly. And I think it showed a boy becoming a man. He stepped up, all the cliches. But I think it helped him that his brief was simple this time. It wasn't use most opportunities you can to bomb on, try and get beyond your winger and whip the odd cross in. Moreno got that. In a way, at times, we were almost like a 3, although I noticed Henderson seemed to be briefed a lot to cover the left-back position behind Moreno, which I thought was very, very bright, which enabled Chan to shuttle across. It was really that hasn't been talked about a lot, how smart we were tactically, defensively, I think, in that game. But I think it helped Gomez enormously.
There was also that. The other thing that struck me on the Henderson thing is something we talked about on a few review shows on Tour Player is when rather than split the centre-halves and go through the middle, what Henderson's actually doing is offering a diagonal ball forward to him where he can either feed left or he can play. He's got the option of trying to play a big ball right, and it wasn't on a lot of the time because the way they lined up with effectively sort of just sitting right in there, conscious of Salah. But it's a bit different to I'm in the middle of the pitch and need the options. It was instead right. You can just sort of see a lot more of this spread of the pitch over here, and that helps you sort of begin to start what we're doing. And we haven't been doing much of that. Moreno.
He was great. He was excellent. He was really good. He was. He won all. They tried to exploit him in the air, and he won 3 or 4 headers in the first 10 minutes.
He got contact every time, didn't he?
The block on Ashley Young's follow up from Lukaku's shot as well. They were, we spoke about concentration and stuff, but Liverpool were just really, really up for it. And earlier I said I always hate when I see these kind of fixtures as the first one after the international break, because I know you're never going to get the sort of level you're looking for from your players. But even despite that, I thought Liverpool were genuinely up for it, aggressive. They were in the mix of everything. There wasn't a physical battle they didn't want to be a part of. They didn't allow the doubling up to happen without cover. Every area they were very smart in, and it wasn't a passive Liverpool yesterday. And Mourinho spoke about them being very good defensively, and he was sort of suggesting that they weren't that great offensively. But considering the restrictions they had by their opponents, I thought even that aspect was so good. All that was missing was that decisive 10% in the final third, and a few better decisions. There's a time when Gini takes a shot, when Firmino's created a world of space for himself and is in a very good position to shoot, and a much better position than Gini. Because you also have to think to yourself, like we've said, you're playing against the best keeper in the league by a distance. And in my opinion, probably the best in the world, or if not that, with his feet, probably the best in the world, definitely. And reflex-wise and stuff. So it's going to take something special to get the better of him. And so just a little bit better decision-making in those periods, like we say, obviously it's difficult for Salah to know that he should leave that ball because Coutinho's got a better chance of getting it, because in that moment he's thinking, oh my gosh, it's come to me in that split second.
Plus he still should score.
The hardest thing to do against a team that wants to be that compact and prepared to go that low is to get in behind them. And let's forget about the chances even. We get in behind them a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one little move in the second half which doesn't even warrant, I think, a match of the day replay thing where Salah, we almost repeat the Leicester goal. Salah nearly nods one in on the far post. That's a beautiful piece of football, the whole interplay.
It is, until the fact that Firmino just ever so slightly overhit that ball. That's one of the, I referred to that was Liverpool. What Liverpool actually did was they had lots of more than they're being given credit for in general, more good chances for chances.
Yeah, we had one in the first half of Coutinho, open space up for himself, and as a one-on-one with, I think it's Herrera. Herrera just gets half a touch on the ball, whereas normally that doesn't get seen as a chance.
A fresher Coutinho roasting.
It's a goal.
Yeah.
But that's not seen as a chance because it wasn't. But it's I know what you're saying, it's a moment in a match where you would expect us to score, and it doesn't even class as a shot because he didn't get one off.
Coutinho in second half threads Firmino through, and he's half a yard offside. But you think, fucking hell, that wasn't planned. I know that you can always give credit to the defence for doing that, but that showed a moment they were living on their nerves at that stage of the game.
The interesting point about Moreno, with the other players being away, will he benefit from will he be receiving more intensive training in terms of concentration, positioning, because more like sort of one-on-one? Okay, what's this week? What's Project Albi Moreno week? We're going to try and convince him how to defend and how to stay switched on. But I wonder if there's any value in that at all, really, in terms of...
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
It's great exposure to what you should be doing, which is obviously quite helpful. And I think, I think people in general, if you've got a perception of a player or if you feel strongly about someone, you find it so difficult to change. And I've seen a lot of people say, I don't understand why Andy Robertson's not starting more. And he's done well when he's played, but Moreno's been really, really good. And I think it's so unfair to him that he's, there's still those kind of conversations, because he's earned the right to start, and the right to start often. And I think it's only good for that position that the fact that, when Robertson does play, he's also really good, because it means you're just going to get the best out of both of them. And in these periods, there was a time where we had 5 games in quick succession just a few weeks ago, and Robertson started 2 of 3 games in a week and Moreno started the 3rd. And it allows you to do that when you've created that healthy competition and you've got both players basically playing at their optimum. And you know that for those 2 games, we're actually not going to be found wanting in that position because Robertson can step in. And then when Moreno comes back in, it's still solid enough.
For me, he's found his timing, Ben. There's a tackle he makes late in the game down by our corner flag where he absolutely empties everyone, and you think, geez, a year ago that's just he gets roasted, he lands on his arse, but his timing's in on it. Like when he makes the block from Ashley Young first, all the time, his decision making's right.
I think that it's. I mean, because I've been a really big critic of Moreno, mainly because I think historically he's played like a footballer without a brain. Yeah. He's like makes mad decisions, and you think, what are you doing? And I think the point you made, it's really difficult for people to accept that somebody can improve and justify. So you're always watching them with your own bias, basically your own confirmation. You confirm your own bias.
You tend to, and you actually often find yourself tending to ignore all the good, and you'll find the 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is a normal behavior, but I think we have to give him credit. Just like, Joe Gomez has had a difficult period as well, but yesterday, and I think again when we talk about these plays, like we're talking about Sturridge, and you have to be conscious of the fact that he's lacking rhythm, he's not playing regularly. With Joe Gomez, we have to be conscious of the fact that he's had 2 major injuries and he's coming back and he's still, finding his feet, finding his sharpness, and the more he's been playing, the more that's coming to him. And yesterday was a very clever performance from him. I thought both offensively and defensively, that ball that he puts in for Emre as well, such a clever ball in that situation. So I think criticism is obviously justifiable and players should get it when they deserve it. But I think we should also then give them credit when you do see them step up and change and learn and improve. Because, Rob and Ben, like you guys are saying, the issue was he was rash. I think that's the word. There was more rashness than anything else. And I think with maturity and with the situation he's found himself in last season, having James Milner ahead of him and, basically being no man. He was hardly ever looked at. And then to still come back from that and think, hang on, they're going to buy another left back, but I'm still here. I'm still here to fight. And then taking everything that he's supposed to learn on board and improving, I think we should give him credit for that.
Can I talk about Jordan Henderson?
Yes.
Because, this is Jordan and not obviously.
It was a nice question, wasn't it?
Well,
Yeah.
kind of
Good answer as well.
I think we all came out.
No other
We all
way
came out to it well.
There's no way of sidling into it other than no one really wanted to talk about Jordan Henderson after the game, and I'm not. I don't know. I'm not in his fan club or the people wanting to put him down and say he's not worthy of this, that, or the other. I'm sceptical enough where he's concerned, and I've worried that he might not be the player he was on the trajectory to become since his injuries. But yesterday, I thought that was as complete a 90-minute performance as I've seen from Jordan Henderson. He's had some good games this season. He's had some games where he's frustrated a bit. And generally, I think, the argument that he can't come back and be a hugely effective midfield player is over. He clearly is. But I thought he was very, very much back to being the all-action 90-minute, hugely energetic footballer that we saw at the end of 13-14. It was one of the most... I don't know what... Maybe I'm seeing something other people weren't. I saw him trying to close down De Gea in the 86th minute, and I thought, fuck me, that's a sign of something that's not a player protecting his body anymore. That's not a player who's worried about anything. Do you know who he reminded me of? Obviously, Javier Mascherano, without quite the bite, but the movement, the energy, the closing down of space, I think was fantastic.
Did you play him on Tuesday?
Well, no. I want to talk to all of you about this. You're not allowed that one. You didn't ask politely either.
Maybe, Ben. Maybe.
Can we talk about Tuesday, Neil?
We can talk about Tuesday, but what I want to talk about is
I want
to talk about. We've just got a clean sheet with this back five, and I'm mildly concerned the manager has made a little bit of a rod for his own back, because I would quite like to just simply play the same back five. And I know it's Tuesday, and we're going to talk about, we've talked already about some rotation in attacking positions, but there's something in my head where I'd like to see Liverpool go with the same goalkeeper, the same back four. I'd consider Henderson as well, full stop, and I've sort of the idea of these six are playing, I'm going to change the five in front of them, because I don't think it'll happen, and I understand why. But Mel, this is where sometimes you can make a decision as a manager, and you can think you're making a season-long decision. And this is back to the thing I said before about Klopp and the idea that he's got a covenant with his players at times. But right now, I'd just quite like to build on this clean sheet. I'd quite like that unit to get another go at being that unit, and I'd be looking at the fact that it's likely to be a quiet game for them. I know that there's question marks around Matip and Lovren in terms of injury and all that sort of stuff. But I just think you're playing, this is where the Saturday, Tuesday, Sunday thing comes into effect. And I'd almost rather go, right, these next three, they've just got that clean sheet. Let's give them 2 more games and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I don't think he will do that. That's what I'd like to do.
If there's any area off the pitch where that's most likely that he wouldn't make a change, as in, I think he definitely has to refresh the forwards just because of how much is demanded of them when they've got to take the initiative in all these games. And he will change the midfield as well. I think there's scope for him not to change the defense because it won't be as taxing for them this game. I think the issue then, though, is that Saturday will be a very difficult game. Another game where you've got to protect your own offensive movements, where you've got to go and try and be dominant against a team that also wants to be dominant. And it's then a case of would they be able to do it then again after having played in Maribor?
It's a big gap between games there, and there's a full week off after Tottenham.
But my thing on this, Mel, I'll go to everyone, is he's put himself in a bind with the goalkeeper. But I want that. I want the unit. He's put himself in a bind with the goalkeeper. He's said that goalkeeper's going to play all the Champions League games. So he's now in a bind. He's in a bind with the goalkeeper going both ways. One way is that now, because we've gone out the League Cup, he can't give Danny Ward a game before Christmas. If the theory is I want to keep everybody busy and blah blah blah. Going the other way, he's now in a position where he can't think, you know what, let's create the idea that there's a back five, the goalkeeper's one of that back five, they're all in this together. Instead, he's pretty much obliged himself to go and sit Mignolet down.
Yeah. In saying that, though, I know I can understand, and I'd like to see the same back line because of what you're saying. It gives you something to build on. They'd all feel quite proud of themselves after that performance against United. But at the same time, I think it's so important that Liverpool get Karius back to the Karius they bought from Mainz, back to the Karius before the broken bone in his hand from pre-season last year, because we need more strength in that position. And at the moment, we've got 3 players there. He's not going to bring in another goalkeeper in January. He's got 3 players there, 2 of which, are closer, I think, than Danny Ward is for battling for that position. And I think it's important Karius plays because he needs to get rhythm as well. I know we think of a goalkeeper differently because you assume it's much easier to play in goal than it is to, play as a striker where you do need rhythm. But the ability to judge the speed of balls coming at you and stuff, it's different in training. It's different when, John Achterberg is kicking balls at you and Simon Mignolet is kicking balls at you and you're playing in those small-sided games of training than it is when, somebody's having a flyer from 25 yards or there's a free kick coming in at you. And similarly, like I said before, when we've changed it, when you've got Robertson coming in and he's doing a good job, that's important. That's important for the team. It's important for, like you say, Neil, he's got to think, longer term. So if he refreshes the fullbacks, we know he's going to change the goalkeeper, which I think you need to give Karius the chance to come good.
I quite like him to save something. Just like it'd be really good if he made a save.
Karius.
Yeah.
It's a good save from Mignolet yesterday.
It's a really good save from Mignolet. On your point on the keeping up the unit, I think it's important to keep Lovren and Matip. I think that's important.
If Karius comes in, I think it makes it slightly more likely that he keeps a solid 4 in front of him. You know what I mean?
I think the keeper comes in. I think the keeper comes in because he wants the keeper to play because it would. And I'm not being flippant in that. Like it would be good if he made a save at some point because for his confidence, he probably needs to make a save because at the minute, when he plays the ball, just go in the net. You go, oh, fucking hell, there it is again. There's another goal. So it would be good for him to make a save in the same way it's good that Mignolet made the save yesterday because he comes out the game then thinking, well, I've contributed to this.
He's only touching the entire game virtually, isn't it?
But normally, the last few weeks, the only touch has been getting the ball up the net. The one against Newcastle, lads didn't even have a shot and it went in. So you're in that. If you're that player, that's going to get, it's going to do your head in. Karius, was he at fault in the last game for the free kick?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I think he should save it. But, it'd just be good. I think it's good for the confidence. If he's going to be any good, he's got to start playing. If he's going to play, he's got to make saves. Otherwise, there's no point playing him. And we need to know if he's any good or not, because if he's not, we need to buy... I'd buy one anyway, but that's a separate matter. But I think it's important to
But would you keep the same back 4 then?
I don't think the fullbacks are as big an issue. I think the two centre halves. The two centre halves and the
I
one.
wouldn't
And
change the centre. Oh, well,
I'd play the
apart
same back
from
four.
depending on condition-wise, I think that's the only. Matip's been pretty solid this season in terms of appearances.
He's right at the international break. He doesn't go away, does he, Matip?
No.
So he doesn't go away. Moreno doesn't go away. Lovren gets a game, I think.
Lovren didn't play though. He was kind of moaning that he has Achilles injuries and all this, that, the other, and then so he stayed. And now
there you go. So hardly anyone's had a kick on international duty. They've got 5 days for recovery for Tottenham, and then there's a full week after that. I think if you've got a new keeper in, it's a really strong case. I think the manager might see it this way, Neil. I think you might get your wish of, and I want it too, of 4 in front. Much as it would be, you wouldn't blame him for throwing Robertson in, saying give Moreno a break. I don't know. There's little things like that. That back four unity is important. What are the spaces between? We say Matip and Lovren, but just as important is the space between Matip and Gomez, and then being used to how that space moves throughout a game. So I'd like to see him
certainly with one eye on Spurs as well.
With one eye on Spurs,
if it was Huddersfield next and then Spurs, and there was a week between, you could come to quite different conclusions possibly. But I like the idea of there's these 3 games, and then it could be different against Huddersfield. Then you could decide I'm actually going to start Robertson in this one. I'm going to have a little look at him for that. And not just Robertson. I'm not just maybe Trent as well for Huddersfield at home, in that it's going to be intense, they work hard, the high tempo, but we should have too much. That's what I'd be, that's what it'd be in my mind. I just think that, you've got these 2 games coming, Ben, you've got Maribor away, you've got Spurs at home. It'd be great to come out of them unbeaten. It'd be even better to come out of them with 2 wins.
Yeah, it would. I think we certainly need to go and beat Maribor. We need to turn them over. I think we need to score some goals. We need to keep.
Do you think he might go strong then?
I wonder how strong he'll go.
I think he might do. It's not going to be a League Cup side. This
no. And which I think we need to win.
Yeah,
we need to win at some point in the Champions League. We need to win if we're going to go through. So I think he might go stronger than what we suspect. With the view that there's enough time probably to give them a couple of recovery days and then do a couple of sessions before Tottenham and then have a week off.
If you beat Maribor away, it's not as good as qualifies you, but it puts you in a very, very strong position in that group. At that point, your rivals for second place, let's just give Sevilla first for argument's sake. Your rivals for second place, Spartak, have already got a draw in the bank with Maribor and who've got to come to Anfield. If we've gone on 1 in Maribor, those 2 have got an uphill battle to finish ahead of us at that stage. So I think you're not putting the Champions League to bed, but you're taking the pressure out of it, and you've got some recovery time. I think he might make 1 change in the 3 in midfield. Milner will come in for one of those lads. I wouldn't like to. Chan is the one most injury vulnerable, so it could well be him. And he'll make 1 change in the front 3. And I think it could well be Chamberlain for Salah, and he'll let Coutinho and Firmino go again. I don't know, with a view to some pre-planned substitution.
I actually wouldn't be surprised if he didn't make too many changes. I would like changes only from the perspective of I'm looking at it and I'm thinking Sadio's gone and Adam's gone, and I just cannot contemplate losing Phil or Salah or Firmino or even one of the midfield 3 now, because I think that performance as well was, if we're talking about keeping the rear guard because of the way they played, that the midfield 3 did so well. Do you want to then you asking yourself, should we build on that and keep that the same as well? But I think I'm probably thinking too much longer term and too much with a view of another setback. Another big setback is going to be so detrimental that I'd like to see some changes, but I actually wouldn't be surprised if he did keep it, because like you guys say, there's enough time till the Spurs game, and then there is a week break before.
Plus, we need to win. We need to win again.
I think Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain has to start a match for Liverpool one day soon.
Yeah.
I think, he's virtually our equal second highest record signing ever. He's an important buy. We haven't even given him virtually half hour substitute cameos, because he starts against Leicester, doesn't he? But that in the League Cup. But that aside, he's the one definite change I'd put him in that front 3, and I'd probably rest Salah because they're alike for like in that position.
Okay. Other thing, very very quick before we all disappear off, is the nature of the point yesterday, it not being all 3. But then, Rob, in the context of what happened across the rest of the league, Chelsea defeated at Crystal Palace, Arsenal defeated at Watford, Spurs got themselves the tidy win. Manchester City 7-2, currently looking ridiculously terrifying. Everybody who they come up against at the minute, they're looking like they're going to absolutely steam. I think the poorer sides, and then they were very good at Chelsea. But again, the value of that point in the context of the wider aim for the season, which is to challenge at the very top end of the league, and that you can see here that there's Chelsea and Arsenal, and arguably Manchester United, haven't seen them up close yesterday. There's not a lot to be scared of, but now we do need to start picking up. We need to be better against the bottom 10, bottom 13 than we were last season. Yeah,
I've been looking at the points in detail. The target for me always is that we want to be around on target for the 76 point mark, with the option of a bit of a run at some stage, giving us something to dream about that's mad. But the main target for the season is comfortable Champions League qualification. That means you have to pick up certain points in certain types of fixtures. And looking at these opening 8, we've had a tough opening 8 here. The only games where you go, you've got to get 3 points there, have been Burnley and Palace at home. There've been no bankers away from home yet. And we've certainly had some very, very tough games in Arsenal, City and United. That's 3 biggies out of 8. We've got 13 points on the board. A 76-point trajectory is 2 points a game. But if you're looking at the hardness of the fixtures, if we'd had 15 at this stage, I'd have gone, that's a solid start to the season. It's a perfectly respectable start to the season. Now, considering we had the Coutinho issue at the beginning, we've lost players through injuries, we've had some setbacks here. No one should be crying over 13 points so far. Of course, we've got to improve from it. We've only lost the one game so far. But as you said yesterday, Neil, other teams around us are accident prone. Arsenal are showing that, well, we've got to worry about them until we get our own game together fully. Chelsea, they may have it in. They lose 2 of their best 3 players yesterday, and they lose. Well, that could be a pattern for them this season. It didn't happen to them last season. United showed to me that the script that they're going to challenge for the title isn't one we should be writing just yet. Spurs, I don't know. They've looked poor at home, and okay, they get 3 more points and they extend a lead on us yesterday, and everyone will go and look at Spurs. It's only Bournemouth at home they do that against. Let's see when we get that fixture and they have to play United.
It's for me, Mel, and it really interests with the way the managers manage the season. You just said you think that you personally may be thinking a little bit too long term, but the more I look at what's gone on so far this season for Liverpool, the decisions the manager makes, the style of football Liverpool are playing, the stuff that's backed up with the statistical stuff that came out a couple of weeks ago around how much less Liverpool are closing down. It just looks to me as though in the manager's mind, I think he thinks we need to come with a run deep into autumn. I think he thinks we've got to put a run of good performances together at the time when we began to find it a little bit tricky last season. I think somewhere in his mind he's thinking we need to pretty much, and I think that also informs yesterday's game. He's thinking, I want to be unbeaten till Christmas here, and we can be. And I think that he's thinking if we are unbeaten till Christmas, then we will be sitting in the top 4. And I think that's what's going through his head. But it's one thing saying that, it's another thing doing it. And Liverpool now do need to be putting points on the board pretty soon, otherwise it can still get away.
Yeah, in his in the matchday program notes, he said performances have been really good, but people can only you'll end up being frustrated, and there's only a certain point you can take the frustration off delivering good performances without getting the result to match it. And I think he's correct in saying that the performances and the results haven't been equal, because if we're looking at this period Liverpool have been through, you cannot say they didn't deserve to win any of those games, or that they didn't create enough to win any of those games. And even, even with the defensive mistakes, where it's annoying because Liverpool takes so much effort to create all these chances and to play that really good football, and then the opposition require minimum fuss to get the goal at the other end. And it is incredibly annoying. But even with that, Liverpool are creating so much. And, we talk about these deep defending sides that Liverpool had an issue with last season. And I think last season, they weren't creating enough quality chances against them. They struggled with that. And I think there has been an improvement this time around. And I think if Liverpool work on this balance that they showed yesterday better, even when they're so vastly more dominant than the opposition, because that will help avoiding those situations where you're giving off those really easy chances. I think Liverpool will be solid and sound moving forward, because it's only the win that hasn't come. Everything else is there, I think, so far that we've seen, even without Lallana, even without Mane now, without Klein. It's not the best start. It's definitely not what they would have wanted. They would have wanted more, 100%. They would have definitely thought they would have had more by now. And I think with the performances, they feel that they should have had more by now. But I do think I agree with you, Neil. I think he learns, and he would have learned from last season, and he would have taken everything on board and thought about how he could better manage that this time around. But also, when we talk about the approach and the drop-off in pressing and stuff, I think we can't ignore the fact that Lallana's out, and Lallana is your presser-in-chief, basically. And people will say, oh, you shouldn't rely on one player to do it. And it's not a reliance on one player. It's one player who's really very, very, very good at it. Just like how Kevin De Bruyne is really very, very, very good at through balls. And if you took him out of City's team, their through ball numbers would drop, and their, chance creation would drop, because he is very good at that. And the fact that Salah is still actually learning the defensive side to Liverpool's attacking play. And Sadio switched over, and Sadio as well learning how to defend on that side, what's required from that position. So I don't think that's so much by design. I think it's happened as a consequence of everything else that's happened.
Just to bring us to the end there, Ben, the more and more I think about this season, the way in which it's shaping up from a Liverpool point of view, I think we're sort of defined by when, if, how long, and how many good runs we get on. That if we can, last season, Chelsea, for instance, and it's worth remembering, when Rob talks about Chelsea and their injuries at the minute, I actually think one of the things to remember with Chelsea last season is to win 13 consecutive games. It's just plain freakish in terms of the way football matches work and look. Like a good run over 13 games is played 13, won 10, drawn 2, lost 1. And that's a great run. You know what I mean? That's 32 points from 39. That's fab. So in my head, you can almost just knock 7 off last season's Chelsea total and say, well, at some point you revert towards the mean. My thing is that we need to get on our good run soon. We've got to hope that yesterday, by not losing, was the first game of that good run, that we're having a conversation in 6, 7, 8 weeks' time saying Liverpool have been unbeaten for 8 weeks and they've got this many wins in that period. And I think that's what defines this season, is when we can get on our good run before Christmas, how good it is, and where the table looks when we come off that good run.
I think that the thing he's learned, he will have learned from last year, because we just ran out of puff for that really crucial period where you've got games every week. We were knackered, and I think it's interesting this season. There's a ridiculous amount of points available over a sixth of the league table in about 3 weeks or something.
The 19th of November to the 1st of January, we play 11. We play 11 league games and 2 Champions League games.
It's almost like you want to be. It's almost like
you want to peak. Then
they've had a conversation where they've thought, okay, here's the challenges that are in front of us. We want to be in this position. We've got people still learning the roles, so let's try and win the games. Let's try and win all our games, but let's make sure that when we need to play every week, and we've got 11 games in 2 weeks or whatever it is, we need to be on top form, and we need to have everybody geared up to be able to be on top form in that moment, because there's literally more points to play for. Do you know what I mean? In that exact period, there's more points to play for. So if you're hitting your stride, then you can suddenly find yourself getting up the table very quickly. If you throw one of them runs in that you've just said before, you start having a look, you get all your breaks, you're settled, you've got a bit of defensive solidity about you all of a sudden, then you go from having a decent start to hang on, look at Liverpool now here, coming into January in a position now where if things go our way, we can bat on here, we can drive, and we can have that, let's look for 76 points, and if we're able, let's get another 10 and then see what's what. So it'd be interesting to see how it plays out.
By the very nature of the league as well, you know that those above you will also have their difficult periods, just because it is, it is a very, very difficult league, and there will be junctures like Chelsea and Arsenal found out yesterday. You won't always have things your own way, and even City, I think they've looked absolutely superb. And obviously I don't think they've not allowed themselves to be tested defensively because they're so brilliant offensively that basically what Liverpool want to do, where your offensive play is your defense. But there will come a time where, they will be tested. They're massively outperforming their expected goals at the moment, I think. I think even United were. And there will be some normalcy. I mean, City started blindingly well last season and the one before as well. I mean, last season, after 7 games, Chelsea were nowhere, City were on top. So things change quickly. And I do think there is an element of, we talk about game management, but this is also season management from him.
Okay, we'll talk about expected goals another time. I think City are outperforming their expected goals, not because they've got lads who are great at scoring goals, but that's a separate conversation. Thank you very much indeed to Melissa Reddy, to Ben Johnson and to Rob Gutmann. It's been the Anfield Wrap this week. You want more of this sort of thing, you have got to play the AnfieldWrap.com/subscribe. European preview show, review show after every single game indeed. Looking ahead to weekends, everything you can want as a Liverpool supporter. We'll see you soon.